Hi, this is Foster, and welcome to Fridays with Foster. So, first things first, I'm going to get a little bit of a shot of espresso. I actually worked out with our barista here at Logic that she will start experimenting with some different drinks. So we'll see. But for now, just a simple espresso. I believe it's a Voluto Nespresso. So we'll see how it goes. I like that. Now I can't tell if I'm just making this up or if it actually tastes a little bit woody, but I think it tastes a little bit woody. So anyway, so today we are going to discuss symptoms and problems. I'm going to start with a wonderful quote by Henry David Thoreau, who said, "There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root." So what are we focusing on? Are we focusing on symptoms or are we focusing on problems? It's very, very easy to get confused. Happens to me all the time. Something that I think is a true issue that I'm trying to deal with, that I'm trying to make better, ends up being the symptom of something bigger. Sometimes what ends up happening is we see where what we are dealing with uncovers a larger problem that we would not have uncovered had the symptom not been there, right? Obviously, when you're looking at medicine, that's just one of those things. The symptom can often reveal something else that was unseen. But what we want to talk about today regarding business, I'm going to give some examples of this. Where are we attacking symptoms and focusing on symptoms instead of the actual problem itself? So I had a client who was a manufacturer and still is a manufacturer. And when we first started working together, I remember every week he would come in and say, how's it going? How's business? He said, man, phones aren't ringing. Phones aren't ringing. And I said, well, let's talk about that a little bit and work out some strategies and focus on some things with the business. The next week is, gosh, that phone's not ringing. Phone's not ringing. So, we went back and looked at some more aspects of his business, including, financials and tracking and things like that we often like to make sure are in place, or else we're going to be, as Keith Cunningham says, enthusiastically running in the wrong direction. Another week goes by. He says, gosh, how's business? The phone's not ringing. Phone's not ringing. So after a month of this, I came in the second week, it was the 10th of the following month, because he had his financials from that point. And I said, well, how are financials? Well, let's look at where revenue and profitability were for this last month. And he said, wow. He said, you know what? He said, they actually went up. And I said, how is that possible without the phones ringing? Well, here we had set some things up that were different from waiting for incoming transmission. We actually had some things set up where we would go out and make business happen instead of relying on the door swinging in. So the measuring device that we had, or that he had, of the number of times the phone rings were not directly proportional at this time in their business that had been around for 25 years, that not directly proportional to the revenue that was coming into the business. So next thing, we'll talk about tasks versus results. I've heard this one so many times. They come in and say, Foster, I have this person that just started. I walk by their desk and they're on Facebook, and blah, blah, blah. And they get really mad about how they're spending their time. So I'd pause for a second and say, are you really concerned with them being on Facebook? It's not like they're playing with matches or something like that in your facility. I said, so what's the real problem? Well, if they're on Facebook, they're not getting their work done. I said, well, how are you measuring success for this person? And they think about it for a minute, and they may or may not have come up with an idea of it, but usually what they think is success did not match if the other person had an idea of what success was for them. Because the truth is, we really don't care if they're on Facebook if they're getting their work done. If they're achieving the goals that you have set for them and the expectations that you have both agreed upon, it really doesn't matter what they're doing. It matters what they're not doing, and that's what the actual problem is. Another issue we hear that's a symptom instead of a problem: hiring. Can't get good people, can't find people. So I ask people, do you deserve good people? Does your company deserve good people? Well, yeah, we're a good company. Okay, we go through the last couple hires. Next thing you know, we're talking about somebody that they brought in that they feel is an A-grade player, and they're normally supposed to take them through a specific 3 to 4 day onboarding process, followed by a 2 to 3 day specific training process that runs them through the software that they use in the company. Oh, well, we didn't have time for that. Well, what do you mean you didn't have time? Well, I mean, we were shorthanded. You know, we found somebody, and so we needed them so bad that we just kind of threw them in. So sure enough, maybe a month passes and they quit. And they're just trying to figure out why did they quit? Well, because you threw them into a situation, they spent the rest of the month trying to catch their breath and figure out how all the systems run, that things they should have learned in the onboarding process. So when people start feeling that kind of disengagement, they leave. Because you're not engaged with them, they're not engaged with you. Other thing that's really great that I like to think about is the difference between integrity and trust, right? So I had a client of mine who was a mechanical contractor, and they were talking about operating from a certain point of integrity and what that meant to them, showing up on time and things like that within the business. But there's a difference between operating with integrity and trust, right? Trust is, I'll give you a little scenario. So a guy brings his HR director and comes up to him. She says, listen, what's the difference between belief and trust? So okay, well, come with me. We're going to go to the circus. Okay, I guess we're going to the circus. So they go to the circus. They sit there and look at the high wire act. And he said, now, do you believe that trapeze artist can walk from one side to the other with no net and not fall? He said, yeah, I believe they could do that. Sure enough, back and forth, doesn't fall. He said, do you believe they could ride that tricycle? He had a little tricycle up there. Do you believe they could ride that tricycle from one side to the other and not fall? It's like, yeah, I believe they could do that. Sure enough, back and forth, not a problem. They said, do you believe they can take that wheelbarrow and push it from one side to the other, not fall? He said, yeah, I believe. They said, okay, trust is getting in the wheelbarrow. So when you try and hire people of integrity, you need to trust them. You need to give them an opportunity. You need to empower them, or else you're going to question them and question what they're doing and why all the time. Last thing is, I love talking about money and cash and the cash flow cycle when I'm working with businesses. And this client, when we first started, they just didn't have a lot of cash. They had decent revenues, but they had no cash on hand. And what we found out was they were worried about increasing sales. They said, we got to increase sales. We need more sales. We need more sales. What we actually ended up doing was looking at the way they were invoicing. So the timing of their invoicing was such that you could make a purchase on the second day of the month. They would invoice once a month. That would not hit the invoice until the first of the following month, so it's almost 30 days. And then they had a net 30 after that. So essentially, they could have people all throughout that time have a 60-day cash flow cycle before it came back around into the system. They gave them net 30. And that's if they even paid within the net 30. So what we did was we just changed that. We started focusing on how much time they had in between invoicing, started invoicing twice a month, and automatically their cash flow grew. Didn't quite double, but it went up significantly. We weren't looking at sales. The symptom, that was the symptom. The problem was the fact that we didn't have a very fast cash flow cycle. We never looked at invoicing. We didn't look at that. And as you know, revenue is for vanity, profit is for sanity, and cash is king. So we wanted to make sure to keep cash online. So when you're starting to think about these things in your business that aren't quite making sense, the issues that keep coming up again and again and again, and you're not sure why or what or how to deal with them, just pause for a second and look at it from a different perspective, because you may be trying to solve a symptom instead of solve a problem, which really can't be done. So I hope you learned a little bit from this. See if I can get that woody taste back again. Hold on. Yeah, it actually seems to be there. So, but yeah, by all means, subscribe, send this to your friends. Really appreciate the support for Fridays with Foster, and have a wonderful and profitable day.